Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this press conference by the President of the Republic of South Africa, President Mandela. Just the form, which I'm quite sure you're all acquainted with. The President will open with a few opening remarks. Thereafter, as is custom, the first question will be by the President of the Correspondent Association of the UN. And if we may just thereafter ask you, when you ask questions, just to identify yourself and the agency with which you are associated. And it may be helpful if you would just stand when you ask a question. It's not out of any protocol, but just that it is easier to identify you and to hear you. We will have to end at 3:45, sharply, punctually, unfortunately. But welcome. And it's my great honor to ask President Mandela just to make a few opening remarks after we will take questions. President?
I believe it is proper to allow enough time as possible to questions from the floor, so that my comments should be related to the actual concerns or questions which are of interest to you. But it is a matter of common knowledge that I came here to address the General Assembly of the United Nations on a wide variety of issues which are also by now matters of common interest to those who were present at the meeting when I addressed it. Secondly, I will be commencing tomorrow a state visit to this country. And my message there is to ask the Americans to throw their market open to South Africans, and also to come and invest in our country. We have created a situation of political and economic stability, and we have formulated guidelines to entrench the tradition of the environment in which foreign investments would be safe. And I am not coming here cap in hand. I am coming as a representative of a sovereign and proud country. I do not want charity. I want to mobilize resources in order to address the ugly socio-economic problems facing our country. Opening markets to South Africans and investing in our country will be to the mutual benefit of both the United States of America as well as South Africa. And it is in that spirit that I will be addressing meetings of businessmen, and I will be speaking to President Clinton. And with those few words, I am now ready to deal with your questions, if you think it is worthwhile to put any questions to me.
President, will you kindly just 1 second move forward? I think the camera persons and Minister, if you will too.
Thank you.
Could I just, before we take the first question from Mr. Swartzman, just say that we have the Foreign Minister, South African Foreign Minister with us, as well as the Ambassador at the UN and the Director General of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Evans, with us. Mr. Swartzman?
Mr. President, my name is Masood Haider. I represent UNCA. On behalf of United Nations Correspondent Association, we'd like to bid you a very welcome. And it's the first time you've come as the President of South Africa, which is great. You, as the President of ANC, you always told the international community to disinvest in South Africa to end apartheid. Now, why are you facing such difficulties in getting investments into South Africa at this point in time?
Sanctions was one of the most effective weapons we had as a community which had no vote. And we have used it effectively and were able to mobilize international support who supported sanctions. And, but now sanctions have succeeded. We have overthrown a government of repression. Now we want to build our country. We need resources. And it's no contradiction, therefore, to say that our common enemy as South Africans and the international community has now been overthrown. We now want to build our country to address the question of lack of jobs, lack of houses, lack of educational and medical facilities, the introduction of electricity into both the urban and rural areas where most of our people haven't got such facilities. All these need resources which we cannot raise only in our country, and that is why I'm here.
Please again the
Good
reminder to
afternoon, Mr.
identify
President.
yourself.
My name is Franz Israel from Haiti, Haiti Observator. Mr. President, you are the symbol for all blacks, how we can work each other. Do you believe if in Governor's Island that President Aristide wanted to meet with General Sidlas as you met with de Klerk and Boutelesi, would we have this in Haiti, or if you believe that there was enough time left by the United States for sanctions to work as it worked in South Africa?
As a matter of general principle, I would strongly support negotiations between political figures in any country. That is the method which we have used in our country very successfully. Former enemies are now allies, all of whom have contributed impressively to the building of a spirit of reconciliation and nation building. But I'm not sufficiently conversant with the situation in Haiti to be able to express an informed opinion on what you have asked me. And I'm limiting myself purely to the general principle which we have applied successfully in our country. But whether the domestic situation in Haiti justifies that strategy is a matter I would leave it to you to decide.
Okay, I have the lady next to you, Gentia.
Yes, Mr. President. My name is Laura Garza Halstead with The Militant. You've stated the importance of the mobilization of the masses for the effort in the fight to build a democratic, non-racial, non-sexist South Africa, and you've said some things about the role of the ANC in this, specifically noting that you yourself would be spending Mondays at the national headquarters of the African National Congress. Can you say something about the role of this in the challenges facing the ANC in the next period? What you see as your goal?
From the point of view of addressing the needs of the masses. Right. Well, we have formulated what has come to be known in our country as the Reconstruction and Development Program. That program emanated from demands which were made by the masses of the people across the country in what we called People's Forums. When we had received those demands from the masses of the people, we then put them in a draft and circulated the document to a wide variety of opinion makers, business, academics, parastatals, the Reserve Bank, the Minister of Finance, and other bodies. They made comments, and we drafted that document several times until the final document, the final draft was the sixth draft. And it therefore became a document which embodied the aspirations of a wide variety of constituencies in our country. It has now been accepted by every political party inside and outside Parliament. It has become our strategy for addressing the problems that I've outlined. It is therefore no longer just the strategy of the ANC. It is the strategy, it is the common property, it is the common asset of the people of South Africa as a whole. So the strategy of the ANC now in implementing that document and addressing the basic needs of the people is part and parcel of the collective which is to be found inside and outside Parliament in our country.
Okay, we can go to the left again. I think we have somebody from the News Agency of Nigeria.
Mr. President, Shegun Adeyemi, News Agency of Nigeria.
Can you speak a little bit louder?
Shegun Adeyemi, News Agency of Nigeria. You said earlier in your speech that millions of politically empowered people across the world are caught in a deadly trap of poverty. Nowhere is this more pronounced than in the African continent. My question is, what is your recipe for reversing this situation in Africa?
Well, I do not have sufficient information to speak authoritatively about what is happening outside South Africa, and perhaps to a limited extent in the region in which I live. But all that I want to say is that I would expect leaders in every country to regard as the priority number one the question of addressing the socio-economic conditions facing their people. And but as far as details are concerned, I would not have the temerity to dictate what should be done in any particular country, except to say that we came into power on the mandate of people who had certain concerns, certain basic needs, who gave us the mandate to address these issues. We are doing that. And I expect that all leaders on the continent will try and do that.
Now, just to add to what the President has said, now that the struggle against apartheid is over, you will recall that for a very long time, in fact, since the inception of the OAU, one of the principal items on the agenda was the question of apartheid. Now that is over. You will further recall that Africa has formulated a common strategy to look into the question of the economic advancement of the continent. A strategy that has got much better possibility of implementation. That strategy is formulated under the Abuja Treaty for an African common market. And South Africa, of course, being part of the OAU, will also subscribe to this treaty, which is aimed at the economic regeneration of the continent as a whole.
I have a question here from the BBC World Service.
John Line,
Well, I
BBC.
think I'm going to leave the fielding of the questions to the Minister of Foreign Affairs. Yes, done very well.
John Line, BBC. Mr. President, can you say some more about the sort of contribution your country can make to peacekeeping and peacemaking in the continent of Africa, particularly whether you're going to be able to give more peacekeeping troops, for instance, to operations in places like Rwanda?
We are part of the United Nations organizations. We are members of the OAU, of the Commonwealth, of the non-aligned movement. And our contribution will be made basically through these world bodies, not in an isolated manner. And whatever is decided by these organizations, depending on the location of the conflict, we will try to make our contribution through the relevant international or regional organization.
I saw a South African hand at the back.
Mr. Mandela, I'm Gary Alfonso from the South African Broadcasting Corporation. Mr. Mandela, what are the indications from the American marketplace at the moment as far as the South African labor situation is concerned? Europe has expressed some concern about the strikes and about the general state of the labor market in South Africa. We go through an annual strike every year. What is the indication from the American marketplace?
Well, I have not had the opportunity of addressing the representative business organizations in this country. I'm going to do so tonight. But I had the opportunity of meeting the mayor of New York last night, as well as Governor Cuomo. And we have concluded bilateral agreements with both the mayor as well as the governor. Their response is a very positive one. We did not have any express discussions on the labor situation in our country. And I was happy about that because we must not get a distorted perspective about the labor situation in our country. The black majority, which has been excluded from the resources of the country, what they see is that their white counterparts get 3 times, sometimes as much as 5 times more wages than the blacks for the same job. And therefore, their struggle is a genuine one in wanting to reach at the same level as their white counterpart. That is what complicates the problem in South Africa. And secondly, this time, June, July, August, September, is the period when the agreements between workers and the employers are renewed, and when negotiations take place for better salaries. And it has always, without exception, been a period of industrial conflict between the workers and the employers. And there is nothing unusual in that. And I do hope that we will be able to explain to the American market that there is nothing novel about what is happening in the country. What is even more, we have now addressed the workers and indicated to them that some of the problems, some of the demands they have made, there is still room for negotiations without the necessity of actual industrial action.
I had a long-standing hand here.
Mr. President, back to foreign policy, if I may. On peacekeeping, well, first of all, a lot of us are unclear in terms of your vision of foreign policy for South Africa, how different it will be from the previous regimes, and in particular on peacekeeping. I mean, how energetically will you attempt to join with other nations in contributing to peacekeeping, and can we expect to see a change?
Well, there is a vast difference between the government, the present government of national unity, with the previous government, because it was a member of neither of the organizations I've referred to. And they were literally the polecat of the world. And they had no foreign policy which was credible and legitimate and which enjoyed the support of the international community. We are in a different position. But I will resist any temptation to take a unilateral action on matters that should be addressed collectively. I will urge that we should act in a disciplined and organized manner through the bodies of which we're members. And I will not at all buy any idea of acting unilaterally. And if you notice our actions, we have acted in concert with the organizations, either international or regional, of which we're members. We have just addressed the problem in Lesotho, but we did so as the frontline states and used the resources of that organization for the purpose of dealing with that problem. That is what we are going to do, and we differ, therefore, from the previous governments because they had no such infrastructure.
Mr. President, Akram Zada from Islam Media. What's your view on the Bosnia-Herzegovina program and in particular the Sarajevo situation actually?
Well, I'm aware of the efforts that have been made by the various nations independently and through the United Nations Organization. I strongly support the initiative of the United Nations, the search for peace. It is regrettable that any form of coercion has to be used in addressing that situation. And I sincerely hope that the leaders of both groups will eventually realize that peaceful negotiation is the best way of addressing problems such as have emerged in that area.
Mr. President, now almost 3 years has passed. We have not seen actual action to seize that problem, that killing of the innocent. Is there any possibility that you personally could interfere into this matter?
Intervene.
Well, I would, with respect, I would discourage a unilateral action on the part of anybody. I do not have the status, the standing, to intervene personally when the United Nations Organization is seized with a matter. Any contribution I will make, it will be through the organization which is addressing this issue, and that is the United Nations.
Lady over there.
Mr. President, Samuels, the new leader, with peace breaking out in the Middle East, will you be working toward eradicating the boycott against the Arab boycott against Israel?
Could you please repeat that, please?
Sorry?
Would you please repeat that, the President?
Repeat it?
Yes, please.
Yes, with peace breaking out in the Middle East, will you, Mr. President, be working toward the end of the Arab boycott of the State of Israel?
Well, I believe that there are already encouraging moves to normalize relations between the Arab states and the State of Israel. And I would support such initiatives. And the initiatives that has been taken by Chairman Yasser Arafat and Mr. Perez seems to me to be a move in the right direction. And I hope it is a step that will be embraced by the countries in the Middle East in dealing with mutual problems, that they will seek to bring these problems around the table and address them peacefully. That is the initiative that I would support.
Okay, another question there, then two here.
I'm from the New York Post, and I was just wondering, in the years of apartheid, you often called on businesses to boycott South Africa. Some businesses did that at great peril to themselves economically. I'm just wondering if now you're going to differentiate between the investments you will accept between the businesses that did divest from South Africa and the businesses that refused to.
Well, retribution is not part of our policy. If our policy was revenge, there would be no government of national unity today. We are saying, let us forget the past. What has happened has happened. Let us now work together in order to promote the spirit of national reconciliation and nation building. And therefore will not victimize any companies, including those that remained in the country.
Okay, there's a gentleman behind you and then yourself, sir.
So, Bhaskar Menon from the Times of India. Do you envisage within South Africa white flight of any magnitude or a flight of the Asian community from South Africa? Is that happening? Or do you foresee
well,
that?
certainly not the Asian community. Whatever concerns are there, the Indian community is settled in this country. And there has been, as you know, flight of technology because skilled people have, many of them have left our country. But that process now is being reversed as people now see the changes that have taken place. And people who felt threatened by these changes now realize that their fears were unfounded. I would just like to repeat, you see, what I have said on two occasions since I came here in interviews. I went in June to one of the biggest congregations in our country, a congregation of a community which is regarded as being extremely conservative. If I had gone there 5 years ago, the police would have defended me against people who wanted to kill me out of hatred. This time, the police defended me against people who wanted to kill me out of love, because they all wanted to shake hands, to embrace, to say something to me. That is the extent of the change that has taken place. And that is the reason now why some of the people who left the country because they were concerned are now coming back. And I think that the government of national unity has succeeded in inspiring confidence into those South Africans who fear change, who fear the future. And I therefore do not think that this is a matter that is going to be one of concern to us.
Mr. President, may I ask if your investment hunt went well in New York? And what do you expect from your coming meeting with President Clinton?
Well, as far as New York is concerned, we have reached an accord, as I have said, both with Mayor Giuliani as well as Governor Cuomo. Agreements have been signed, and the Port Authority of the New York State is going to open an office on the 1st of next month in Johannesburg. And that is a sign of the realization of the interdependence economically between the state of New York and South Africa. And I'm not going to discuss here with the mass media what I'm going to discuss with the President of the United States of America. Well, I'm also not going to prejudge the issue. All that I want to say is that I regard President Clinton as one of the most competent heads of states, and who has shown a remarkable capacity of being sensitive to the needs of others. And as far as our country is concerned, even before he became president, his response to the request I made to him was very positive, supportive, and encouraging. Much more after he was inaugurated. And I go, therefore, to White House full of confidence that every reasonable request I make will be addressed.
Just the hands that we've been ignoring at the back right now. Yourself, sir, yes.
My name is Julie Makaring from Savannah newspaper in Mozambique. Mr. President, your government has inherited a huge military infrastructure that in the past was viewed as the source of violence and destabilization in the region. Can you tell us now what are your plans, what's your policy with regard to your military industry?
Well, speaking about the southern region, Southern African region, we are now members of the frontline states. We are members of the OAU. I have already pointed out that we differ from the previous government in that we are part and parcel of an organized and disciplined movement in Africa. And everything that we do, we will do as part of the organization of which we are members. We can therefore have no independent military policy which is not subscribed to by our neighbors in the region in which we are. We are well aware of the damage that has been caused by the South African military. In fact, insofar as the situation in Lesotho, without suggesting that my colleagues in the region wanted any drastic action, but we were very, very emphatic in saying that we wanted to live down the tradition of military stabilization and economic sabotage of other countries in our neighborhood. And that, therefore, to us, the use of the military to address any problem was totally unacceptable. But you must also remember that we're members of SADC, and therefore, I don't think there should be any fear that we'll be able to follow the policy of the previous government in this regard.
Well, I think we're going to take three last questions. I'd seen one here, the gentleman over there had been out for a long time, and then we'll stop.
Mr. President, Patrick Bolger from South African Press Association. May I ask you, in the context of reducing government spending by way of creating a more attractive investment climate, how will your government now take forward the Finance Ministry report on government salaries that I believe you mentioned to CNN this morning?
Well, we are very much concerned, we are committed to fiscal and monetary discipline, and also to the reduction of government consumption. We believe, in fact, I have asked the Minister of Finance to prepare a memo on belt tightening exercise by the entire country. And he has made a suggestion which is going to be put before the cabinet. Firstly, that the president two deputy president and the rest of the members of the cabinet should cut their salaries by 20%. That members of parliament should do so by 10%. That there will be no increase in the salaries of public servants, except those that are in the lower echelons. That will be increased so that eventually they should be on par with the rest of the public service. We will also, in terms of that draft memo, call upon labor as well as a business to be disciplined and to be able to settle their problems through the machinery that has been created, like the National Economic Forum, to handle these matters without disrupting the economy of the country. And we are also adopting other strategies. The policy of subsidizing business industry is one we think is counterproductive. We want our goods to be internationally competitive without the necessity of subsidies. We are also thinking of lifting control on exchange, and so that we should therefore be able to break down the barriers between ourselves and the rest of the world. And we think that these measures will go a long way in addressing the problems that you raise.
Okay, the penultimate one.
Mr. President, during the apartheid regime...
Would you mind identifying yourself, sir?
Uluç, Hürriyet of Turkey. During the apartheid regime, you have spent a very important time of your life in jail. What is your frank and honest and sincere feelings towards the former white ruling class?
Well, those questions are now irrelevant. We have formed a government of national unity. That government is on course. It has got a firm grip on the problems of the country, and it has chosen a direction in which the national effort should be concentrated. And I think that within the first 5 months in power, we have made remarkable progress. I am tempted to forget about the 27 years I spent elsewhere. And
sorry, we have to do this in the proper way. There was a person that I recognized. There are a number of others which I did, but I'm afraid we'll have to end after this.
Ms. Maria Garcia from CNS News. Mr. President, I would like to know what areas and sectors of investment do you prefer foreigners invest first in your country?
Which areas of investment would you prefer?
Well, we would not dictate to investors. We would leave it to investors to decide where to put their investments. But of course, as I have already indicated, these basic needs are interrelated. We are talking about joblessness, the lack of housing. We can't say that between these two we should start with this because of that interrelationship. Building houses, building schools, clinics is going to provide not only houses and other facilities for individuals, but they are job-creating initiatives. So there is that interrelationship. And we hope that investors will be able to see this interconnection and that their investments will be calculated to ensure that these basic needs are addressed. There is also the question of black economic empowerment. we would like foreign investors to enter into partnerships with black business, because one of the problems that we have, which of course is going to be found in all spheres of our life, is the fact that big business in South Africa is by definition white, and blacks are confined and limited to small business. Blacks have no capital of the nature, for example, that would enable them to buy the parastatals that are being broken up and other enterprises which are now being privatized. Only whites can take advantage of that privatization, so that wealth remains with the group that has got the capital, that whites. And therefore would like foreign investors to be engaged in this economic empowerment of blacks. Question of education is extremely important, because without education, it doesn't matter what we do, we will not be able to produce a class of highly literate South Africans to serve the community. So this is a matter which we will leave at the discretion of the investors themselves.
For investors?
Do you want to take that final one? Are there any conditions for investors?
No, we will impose no conditions. If there are any concerns that we have, we will discuss them with the investors themselves. It is better to reach consensus on matters of this nature rather than to rely on law or on conditions that have been imposed, which might frighten and offend investors. Consensus negotiations is the most powerful weapon that we have. We are going to use it, and we think that it will bring us a lot of benefits rather than prescribe certain conditions.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. There's going to be a photo opportunity that these gifts will be from the United Nations will be handed over to the President. Thanks very much for your patience and cooperation.
Thank you very much.
Good work. This is the book we had this morning. Secretary I gave to you this morning. Thank you. This is the book which the Secretary I gave you this morning about the struggle of South Africa and the United Nations.
Well, thank you very much. I value it very much. It's a wonderful collection which contains the history, especially of the last 4 decades of our struggle. And I found it very valuable indeed.
Media person.
Okay. These are the photographs which
hang on to you now.
saw this morning also.
Okay. Yeah.
Everybody finished. Well, I'm afraid this is a familiar. These are 2 familiar faces. And,
Excuse me, I can't back.